followed. Shelves emptied, streets fell quiet, and the hum of everyday life dimmed beneath the weight of a global pandemic. Yet even in the stillness, behind the secure gates of the U.S. Mint, machines continued their rhythm. Coins were still struck, presses still rotated, and amid it all, the 2020 Jefferson nickel was born, not with fanfare, but with silent repetition. Billions were produced across the Philadelphia and Denver mints, as if insisting that despite the world's halt, some things must endure. Most of these 5-cent coins were exactly as intended, clean, unremarkable, and uniform. But not all. Among the avalanche of nickels, something slipped through. It began with a faint irregularity, barely perceptible unless you were looking for it. A collector in Kansas City noticed it first. A routine roll searcher, he had spent countless nights at his dining room table, sorting, scanning, sorting again. When the 2020D nickel slid under his magnifier, he paused. The first thing he noticed was the mint mark. It seemed off. Not merely shifted, but almost distorted, as if melting slightly toward the rim. Then his eyes caught the word, "In God We Trust." The letters were fuzzy, doubling faintly, yet clearly, mostly around the G and D. He flipped the coin over. Monticello's columns didn't stand firm as usual. They wavered, split down their edges with a ghost-like echo. The base of the dome shimmered with a shadow of itself, and the word Monticello showed clear signs of doubling, true, rotational doubling, not the mechanical kind. His breath caught. This wasn't damage. This was a genuine error. He weighed the coin. 5 grams, as expected. He tilted it under his desk lamp, catching each imperfection with a mix of wonder and doubt. Could it be? He scoured coin forums that night, posted pictures, and waited. The next morning, replies trickled in. "Looks like a double die reverse. That Monticello is wild. Where did you find this?" Soon word spread. A 2020D Jefferson nickel with dramatic doubling on the reverse had been discovered. Collectors began pouring through change, buying bank rolls by the box. More surfaced, some mild, some extreme, but they shared common traits, prominent doubling on Monticello, ghost images along the dome, and often, slight distortion on the obverse inscriptions. Error specialists noted that these double dies were unlike most modern issues. The doubling was sharp, clean, and unmistakably linked to a misalignment in the die creation process, one that should have been caught, but wasn't. The timing made it stranger. In a year when coin circulation dropped and mint staff worked under distancing restrictions, could protocol lapses have allowed flawed dies to enter production? Theories abounded. Some blamed rushed schedules. Others suspected the mint's die swap process might have been altered due to staffing shortages. But no one could say for certain. By the end of 2020, the coin had taken on an underground status among error hunters. It didn't have an official catalog listing yet, but the community buzzed. The term 2020 DDO/DDR nickel began circulating. Images were shared, comparisons drawn. Some examples fetched $40, then $100, then more. Grading services confirmed it, a legitimate double die variety. Then, a breakthrough. A Florida-based collector named Henry Morales submitted a coin that stunned even the graders. Not only did it exhibit bold doubling on the reverse and partial doubling on the obverse, but it also displayed a unique planchet flaw, an internal lamination crack that ran beneath the surface, only visible under angled light. The grading note included double die reverse, obverse doubling present, internal planchet defect. The rarity of such a trifecta was astounding. What elevated the coin further wasn't just the error, but the condition. Morales had preserved the coin in a coin flip the moment he found it. PCGS assigned it MS68FS. Bull steps. A designation few modern nickels achieve due to the detail whereon Monticello's stares. That coin, once plucked from a gas station roll, was auctioned privately in early 2023. The sale closed at $12,300. It wasn't the only standout. Another MS-67 Plus example with strong doubling and pristine luster fetched $6,900 later that same year. Prices for raw examples surged, though the quality varied. Coins with strong reverse doubling and minimal contact marks regularly sold for several $100s. Graded mid-range specimens climbed steadily, their scarcity more apparent with each passing month. What intrigued collectors further was the inconsistency. Not every 2020D nickel displayed the error, but those that did fell into one of several subtypes. Some showed doubling primarily on the pillars of Monticello. Others emphasized the roofline. A rarer few displayed notching on the word. "Buy since!" Specialists categorized them into variations, suggesting the mint had used more than one flawed die over a span of days or weeks. The market took notice. Dealers began offering bounties for examples matching the Morales variety. Coin shows displayed laminated posters highlighting the doubling patterns. Even mainstream collectors, typically uninterested in modern nickels, began watching eBay listings and auction previews. The 2020D nickel had transitioned from an obscure curiosity to a centerpiece of modern era collection. But there was one more twist. In late 2023, a submission to NGC unveiled something previously undocumented, a 2020p nickel, not Denver, displaying identical doubling. Experts at first believed it was a misattributed coin, but verification confirmed the Philadelphia mint mark. The doubling matched the Denver pattern in eerie precision. The revelation shattered assumptions. The error hadn't been confined to Denver. This raised new questions. Had both mints used similarly flawed master dies? Or had die hubs been shared between facilities without proper inspection? No clear answer emerged, and the U.S. Mint offered no comment. Theories bloomed once again. The possibility that the error originated from an early master stage elevated the coin's status even further. Suddenly, the 2020 nickel was no longer a Denver anomaly. It was a national mystery. Collectors raced to re-examine 2020p nickels. A few more examples emerged, but they remained significantly rarer than their Denver counterparts. The scarcity of the Philadelphia variant only added fuel to the value conversation. By early 2024, the top-end coins had found homes in elite collections. Lower-grade examples continued to be scooped up quickly online, with even modest doubling fetching upward of $300 when well preserved. The Morales coin, though, remained the king of the hill. The journey of the 2025-cent coin, from mundane currency minted during a pandemic to one of the most sought-after modern errors, underscores the unpredictable nature of numismatics. It wasn't the age, the metal, or the historical moment that gave it value, but a sequence of human missteps, mechanical irregularities, and the sharp eyes of collectors unwilling to overlook what others dismissed. And today, if you hold in your hand a 2020D Jefferson nickel with bold doubling on Monticello, strong full steps, and a clean mint-state surface, you may very well be holding a piece worth as much as $12,300. The presses in 1958 clanged with confidence. America was deep into its post-war boom, and the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia operated like a heartbeat, steady, precise, and without pause. The Jefferson nickel, already 2 decades into circulation, was no longer a novelty but a constant, a familiar face in pocket change across the country. And 1958 was no exception. Nearly 17 million nickels were struck that year, all of them bearing the stoic profile of Thomas Jefferson, with Monticello standing proudly on the reverse. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. The dies were well worn but efficient, the design was unchanged, and mint officials had little reason to anticipate any deviation. But tucked within the massive output of 1958 was a quiet mistake, one that wouldn't come to light until decades later, and even then, only by accident. The discovery didn't happen under the bright lights of a major auction house, nor in the vaults of an elite numismatic archive. It happened in the humblest of places, a small-town antique store in rural Ohio. A local collector, Samuel Briggs, had wandered in on a rainy afternoon looking for old postcards. What caught his eye instead was a jar labeled pre-1960 coins, $54/$1. Curious, he picked through it, noting a few Wheaties, a tarnished Mercury dime, and several Jefferson nickels. One, a 1958 piece, gleamed oddly under the store's flickering bulb. At first glance, nothing screamed rarity. The obverse was typical, Jefferson's profile, the usual inscriptions. But when Samuel turned it over, his brow furrowed. Monticello's steps looked blurred, as though the design had been stamped twice. He adjusted his glasses. The word Monticello appeared to have a shadow, a clear doubling effect stretching slightly southward. Even 5 cents showed unusual thickness in the serifs. He purchased the coin, not out of certainty, but curiosity. Back home, under a loupe and bright desk lamp, his suspicions deepened. It wasn't mechanical doubling. This wasn't the flat, shelf-like error caused by die bounce. No, this was true double die, raised, rounded, and unmistakably from the die creation process itself. Samuel began researching immediately. No major catalogs listed a 1958 double die reverse nickel. Online forums were quiet on the subject. Yet there it was in his palm, a coin defying its own documentation. He sent it off to a grading service, unsure of what response he received. Weeks passed. Then the letter came. Confirmed. 1958 Jefferson nickel, double die reverse. Grade MS64. The numismatic world stirred. Error specialists debated whether it was a new variety or an overlooked one. Some believed the die had only been used briefly before being retired, which would explain the coin's extreme rarity. Others speculated that the mint, upon noticing the flaw, quietly pulled the die without announcing the mistake. Whatever the cause, no more than a handful of similar examples had surfaced. The error was subtle compared to the bold varieties of later years, like the famous 1955 double die cent. But its impact rippled just the same. Collectors began pulling 1958 nickels from old rolls and jars, examining every reverse for signs of doubling. Few were found. Most were clean, textbook examples of the year's output. But in late 2021, a second confirmed specimen emerged, this one from a private estate sale in California, tucked inside a Whitman folder untouched since the 1970s. This one was even sharper than Samuel's. 5 cents, left with separation lines between the letters. Monticello displayed dramatic split serifs, and the base of the dome showed a ghost-like echo. Graded MS65 by NGC, it sold quietly at auction to a private collector in New York for $9,200. The sale didn't make headlines, but among dedicated Jefferson collectors, it hit like a thunderclap. The value of the coin began to evolve, not rapidly, but with a steady sense of inevitability. More collectors added it to their error wish lists. The price for even lower-grade examples, if they could be authenticated, quickly crossed the $1,000 mark. And raw coins showing partial doubling, even if unconfirmed, fetched premiums on speculation alone. Part of what drove demand was the mystery. Why hadn't this error been discovered sooner? With millions of 1958 nickels produced and countless roll searches performed over the years, how had it stayed hidden? Theories ranged from limited die use to weak initial impressions that only grew visible on coins struck early in the die's life. Still, there was no concrete answer. That uncertainty, paradoxically, only added to the allure. What's more, unlike many modern errors, this wasn't just a curiosity, it was a gateway. For some collectors, it sparked an interest in pre-1960 Jefferson nickels altogether, a series often dismissed in favor of rarer types. Suddenly, the 1958 double die became a symbol of undiscovered potential, proof that even the most overlooked coins could harbor secrets. And then came the twist. In 2023, a collector attending a Midwest coin show presented a third specimen to a grading table. At first glance, it appeared similar to Samuel's find, double die reverse, clean fields, modest wear. But the graders noticed something else. The planchet appeared unusually glossy. Under magnification, faint lines radiated from the center, die polish marks, deeper and more aggressive than normal. When they flipped the coin back to the obverse, they froze. There was no mint mark. This wasn't unusual in itself. 1958 nickels from Philadelphia carried no mint mark. But what made this coin exceptional was its weight. It came in at 4.7 grams, slightly under the standard 5.0 grams. A second test revealed its composition wasn't entirely nickel-copper. Trace amounts of silver were present, minuscule but measurable. The hypothesis was bold. A transitional planchet .1 theory suggested the coin might have been struck on a leftover experimental alloy, perhaps one created during internal testing. The U.S. Mint had considered alternative metals during the early Cold War due to rising costs and military needs. Most of those tests were undocumented or poorly preserved. If this theory held, it meant the coin wasn't just a double die error, it was struck on an unintended planchet using a rare reverse die. Further testing confirmed the findings. Though not pure silver, the planchet's composition matched known internal test batches from the mid-1950s. With both a double die and alloy anomaly, the coin became a one-of-a-kind hybrid, an error within an error. It was submitted for auction with fanfare, and collectors lined up to view it. When the gavel fell, the coin sold for $17,800. The 1958 Jefferson nickel, once a forgettable member of an unremarkable year, had transformed. From a shadow in a dusty coin jar to a beacon of numismatic intrigue, it stood as a reminder that rarity isn't always loud. It can be quiet, waiting for the right eyes to see it. And today, if you happen across a 1958 nickel with an unusually sharp Monticello, letters that seem to echo, and steps that shimmer with unspoken detail, you might be holding a prize that could command as much as $17,800. The hum of the Denver Mint in 1995 echoed with the same efficiency that had defined its operations for decades. It was a year largely devoid of controversy in the numismatic world. There were no major overhauls to coin design, no commemorative surprises that shook the collecting community. The Jefferson nickel, as it had for over half a century, continued its quiet duty. Mint employees struck over 300 million nickels that year, their hands guided by routine and their machines performing like clockwork. There was nothing on the surface to suggest that anything unusual would emerge from this massive production run. The dies had been calibrated, the blanks fed steadily into the presses, and Jefferson's profile struck true on coin after coin. At least, that's what the records suggested. But nestled deep within that sea of consistency, something slipped through. A mistake subtle enough to go unnoticed at first, yet striking enough to catch the attention of a careful eye years later. It was 2007 when Melissa Jarvis, a young hobbyist from Minnesota, stumbled upon it. She was a newcomer to coin collecting, having just inherited her grandfather's coin folders. He had stored nickels by date and mint, often tucking multiples of each into the same slot. She wasn't searching for treasure, just reminiscing. But as she sorted through the 1995s, something caught her eye. One particular coin from Denver looked off. Monticello's line shimmered with what seemed like depth beyond the norm. The lettering below it, especially the words 5 cents, appeared heavier, the strokes oddly thick. She compared it to others from the same slot. None had that strange doubling. Her fingers tingled. Something wasn't right. She took the coin to a local show and showed it to a vendor. He squinted, then reached for his loupe. Silence. Then a low whistle. "This might be the real thing," he said. Melissa hadn't even known what he meant by real thing. She learned quickly. Her coin, it turned out, showed signs of a double die reverse, an error caused during the die creation process, where the design is impressed twice at slightly different angles. True double dies are rare in nickels, especially ones from the late 20th century. This wasn't mechanical doubling, which can appear flat and shelf-like. This had the rounded, raised characteristics of a genuine hub misalignment. She sent it in to be graded. When the results came back, it was official. 1995 D. Jefferson nickel, double die reverse, MS63. And just like that, What had been an unassuming pocket change here exploded with significance. The news trickled through forums and collector circles. At first, many were skeptical. 1995 was better known for its famous double-die Lincoln cent, not the nickel. But the photos confirmed it. On the reverse, Monticello showed strong doubling on the OL and final O 5 cents, had noticeable separation in the ENC. Even E pluribus unum displayed faint but distinct doubling. More eyes turned to 1995 D nickels. People began scouring rolls, pulling change, revisiting dusty coin folders, and slowly more examples came to light, though not many. By 2015, only a few had been authenticated, and none graded higher than MS-64. The value started modestly, with early sales at a few $100s. But as interest grew, so did the demand and the price. Then came a surprise. In 2018, a collector submitted what he believed to be another double-die nickel from the same year. But this one wasn't from Denver. It bore no mint mark at all, indicating it had been struck in Philadelphia. When it came back from grading, the label stunned everyone. 1995 Jefferson nickel, double-die reverse, MS-66. For a moment, theories swirled. Could both mints have accidentally produced double dies that year? Was it a fluke of shared die preparation methods? Or had the same error been passed between facilities? Whatever the explanation, it added a second layer of intrigue. Now, two separate varieties were being hunted by collectors, each rare, each commanding attention. By 2020, the double-die reverse from Denver had taken on legendary status among Jefferson collectors. Only 9 examples had been certified across all grades. No MS-67s had been found. And while the Philadelphia variety remained even rarer, the Denver coin held a stronger presence in auctions. But the most unexpected twist came in 2022. A collector specializing in mint-era coins, especially transitional planchets and struck-throughs, noticed something strange about one certified 1995 D double-die. Under strong lighting, faint radial lines danced across the coin's obverse. Not scratches, but a sort of hazing effect. He examined the weight. Slightly light, for 0.86 grams. A bit off from the standard 5 grams for a nickel. He sent it for metallurgical analysis. The results shocked everyone. The coin's composition showed signs of a copper-zinc mix, not the usual 75% copper, 25% nickel alloy used for Jefferson nickels. This was closer to the composition of a Lincoln cent planchet. Experts speculated that the coin may have been mistakenly struck on a leftover blank intended for a penny, a rare and bizarre mint mishap. Though its diameter remained that of a nickel, the weight and luster told another story. It was a triple anomaly: double die, wrong planchet, and struck at the height of the modern minting era where errors were supposed to be nearly impossible. When the coin finally hit the auction block, collectors buzzed with anticipation. It wasn't just about rarity now. It was about defying the odds in 3 distinct ways. The final hammer price, $14,200. That single coin, born of a quiet mistake and discovered by chance, transformed the way collectors viewed late-issue nickels. No longer dismissed as too new or too common, the 1995 D double-die became a case study in the hidden value of modern coins. Today, if you happen across a 1995 Jefferson nickel with a slightly doubled Monticello, heavy lettering on the reverse, and a hint of something unusual in the light, you might just be holding a coin worth up to $14,200.